And I remember one day in that class, we watched a particular documentary called Islam, Empire of Faith. And it was in that video that I heard the adzan, the call to prayer, for the first time in my life. And I heard it in that classroom several times through the course of this documentary. And I remember walking through the snowy landscape of New Hampshire and feeling for days, perhaps weeks after that, that everything around me was almost echoing the adzan. Before I was known as Adnan, I was known primarily as Adrian. I was born in 1988 to an American mother and a British father. It was in my freshman year, so my first year of college, that I came to Islam. During that time, spent a cumulative year and a half in the Arab world, in the Middle East, studying Arabic. Then wound up in California for a few years, where I married my now wife of 12 years. And then we've been in Providence, Rhode Island for the last 10 years, where I've served as an imam and Muslim chaplain at Brown University. I don't remember all the details, but the way my mother tells it is that when I was 7, that it was me who demanded that we find a church, we become members of the church so that I can be baptized finally. Because for me, faith and religion, Christianity, that was the most important thing. Now, growing up, I was involved in my church, heavily involved in my church, to such an extent that, say, for example, my senior year of high school, I was giving the sermon on Youth Sunday and involved in many ways at the church. But in my years there were things that I saw at the church and elements of Christianity that really bothered me and that I didn't understand. One of the elements was not necessarily the belief, but the practice. First of all, the sense that there were all these different denominations doing very different things in terms of their worship and their belief. One of the key things, too, was growing up in the church, and specifically in high school, seeing that the worship service had a particular form, and then when we got a new head pastor, an interim head pastor who was just going to be there for a year, things started changing. The way we worship started changing. First year of college at Dartmouth College, I find myself as an Arabic major. Part of the requirements of being an Arabic major is we had to take Arab 10, Introduction to Arab Culture. And so it's winter of my freshman year, I'm taking this course, and I remember one day in that class, we watched a particular documentary called Islam, Empire of Faith. And it was in that video that I heard the adzan, the call to prayer, for the first time in my life. And I heard it in that classroom several times through the course of this documentary. And I remember walking through the snowy landscape of New Hampshire and feeling for days, perhaps weeks after that, that everything around me was almost echoing the adhan. I felt it echo inside of myself, and I felt like I was being called to something. And so from that point forward, I started looking into Islam. It felt like that little boy, Adrian, who was desperate for answers and plagued by certain questions in life, like he finally had his peace and he finally had his answers. So after 2 months of taking in parts of Islam that, oh, this practice here and that belief there, let that inform my belief and practice, my life as a Christian. After about 2 months of that, I found myself in the Muslim Student Association room for Jumat prayer for the second time. And I sat through that service, which was a completely different experience from going to church growing up. It just felt like everything I needed in a worship service. And over the last few months, I've taken on this part of Islam, and this part of Islam, and this part of Islam. And I was sitting there looking and thinking, I can see I have more invested in Islam than I do in Christianity. So I guess that makes me a Muslim. So I'm sitting there and I think, I guess I'm a Muslim. So it's then that I go up to the Imam and I say, I want to become Muslim. I want to take my Shahada.